to Down Your Unders. Down Your Unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
Hello, all you lovely Art of War Down Under enjoyers. We are here with episode 188. The march to 200 continues another 3 or so months, and we'll be sitting at that nice milestone. Cannot wait. Hope you guys are enjoying the content, and thank you so much for the support so far. We're going to do an interesting episode this week. Hopefully you've read the title and you see what is coming. But there is a army that is kind of taking the meta by storm against all predictions, against all... No, I'm joking. Many people have said they are good, they are great, and they're one of the best armies in the game. And one gentleman has gone out there and proved it, standing up to his statements, on the mount, so to speak, in front of all, I am correct, behold me. His name is David Gaylard, and he's joining us for this Astra Militarum Revisited episode. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, man. 188 episodes, dude. It just shows you how much of a force you are, man. 188. That's 3 times as much as I do on my podcast. So you're a
dude. Don't dismarriage yourself or whatever I was supposed to say there. But dude, all it is just keeping going, just keeping chugging along. The little engine that could. I cannot wait to see what you guys are producing, in 100 episodes, because I've listened to every single one of that beautiful Fireside podcast, which you should now plug.
Oh yeah, 40k Fireside podcast. Yeah, Vic VJ and myself, David Gaylard. We're just 2 regular competitive people from Team Ignite. Just chat about honestly and openly, what we do and what we experience and what we think. So yeah.
I love this regular competitive people. Mid-table nothings. You've never heard of us. None of them will ever won anything. That Team Ignite, it's no super club. It's no super team. There's nobody of note in that stable, But anyway, moving on. This is going to be a different episode, a little bit different, because of course we're not reviewing anything. We've already reviewed the Astra Militarum Index, which I think you did with me a couple of months ago. To our great delight, we have you back now that you've played that list and that faction at a very high level for quite some time, developing much of a reputation as, possibly one of the best guard players in the world. But I put out in my Patreon group, naturally every there's a 2-part podcast. First part comes out, you guys listening to it right now. Second part is usually behind the paywall, and what happens there is we give the floor to the patrons. They ask us questions, we answer them to the best of our ability, and usually I get enough questions to fill up about 45 to an hour from our patrons. For this topic, for the Astra Militarum, or us long-standing Imperial Guard players, I have had a metric crap ton of questions, enough to fill up probably 3 episodes if I was to do it like that. To that end, the first 20 minutes of this episode is going to be me asking David the questions I want to ask David about Guard, about what he's doing, how it's working, and why. And then we're going to start answering listener questions in part 1, which we usually wouldn't do, but that's the only way we're going to get through them, because there's like 40 of them. There are some very good questions. Some of them are repeats, but I'll be judging the repeats where we can. And then, jump over to part 2 if you want to get the remainder of the questions being answered, because, like I said, there are some very good questions, especially some of our long-standing, some crunchy questions, especially from a gentleman named Sam Lemon. He never asks questions about the subject matter. He always asks personal stuff, and they get pretty spicy at times. And if you want to be part of that, you go over to Patreon and you sign up to Art of War Down Under. You can be involved too. Get in the Discord, ask me some whimsical, wily stuff. Meme me on Tuesdays when the podcast isn't up immediately as the clock strikes, a minute past midnight, as people do. It's a lot of good fun. So we're going to jump straight in, mate. Astra freaking Militarum. This is a faction that is close to my heart. I'm sitting, I have a chest of drawers behind me, which each drawer has an army in it, and it's got 6 drawers, and 3.5 of them are full only of Imperial Guard. I have somewhere in the region of 12,000 points of painted Cadians. I've got 13 Lehman Russ chassis.
That's pretty respectful, man. I've only got
literally
6K maybe.
All of 7th edition and the first 2.5 years of 8th edition, I played nothing but Imperial Guard. I played nothing but Astra Militarum. This is definitely a faction very close to my heart. I've played them a little bit in the last 12 months, played them, I think, a handful of times in this edition as well. But I discarded them very early on. I think we chatted about this in the Astra Militarum review. I played them and I got bored very quickly because it was indirect.list, and that was like sick. So I'm just going to roll dice at you until you're either not there or I've lost. And that was just every game, every single game. And of course, we talked about the issues with that playstyle being that there's like at least 2 missions that come up in a lot of GT packs where you don't really get any points doing that playstyle. And that was kind of the ceiling that was on the faction then. So first and foremost, mate, what has changed?
What's changed? Well, I think when we did the podcast on the faction review, that was like pre-WTC, right? So I was thinking about kind of doing some reflections on what to talk about today and kind of thinking about what the meta was like back then, right? So back then the meta was double Wraith Knight, GSC, just drop, double demo squad and table your opponent. But you know what? Because I think the total amount of indirect that you could run rocked up to be about 1080 points, right? 1,080 points or something. So that was kind of the list, 1080. And the thing is, though, is that actually Guard did quite good at WTC, which I don't think either of us would have thought was the case, right? But Poland with Skark did really well with Guard at WTC. Alex Harrison did really well with it for Team England as well. So weren't 100% on the money in that case, but just goes to show you it's still a polarizing faction when you run literally half your army as indirect and you can get good pairings, can still be a force to reckon with. So I think it probably had its breakout debut at WTC. But I mean, the meta has changed so much since then. A lot of the predators of Guard have been reduced, right? So they've been, Chaos Space Marines and Eldari for like the last, what felt like 6 months or something like that. Night Spinners are brutally good against Guard. Those 2 core armies have been nerfed, and they're forced into playstyles which Guard are actually now good at combating and beating. So that's really been the big boon for Guard. It's that its predators have come down rather than it's risen up, so to speak. I mean, it got some points deductions in the big balance status update that I think was in December. In September, I think. Sorry.
Yeah, it was.
They got points drops across the board, which was great. And so that's been the main buff for it now. But it's in a really good spot. The meta it's really tough for the meta at the moment to be good into Guard and be good against things like Necrons and Custodies, for example.
Yeah. Exactly right. And you nailed it on the head there. They are a kind of, so there's always the 3 states of play that, as I see it competitively, there's playing the meta, as in playing what is good right now. That would, in this case, would be, that would be Space Marines, that would be Necrons, that would be Custodies, that would be a bunch of other factions, Death Guard probably. There's playing anti-meta, as in playing something that you are a faction specialist at, be it Drakari, be it that, I am very good at a faction and I can tool it to be good into the better things, even with a weaker faction, and you can punch up, or you can play into the meta and play counter meta, as in like, I'm going to play stuff that is not predated by anything directly in the meta. And that is exactly where Guard is existing right now, to your point. Talking about the list, what is being taken, what units are being taken. So Guard, there is they have one of the deepest indexes in the game as far as data sheets go. There's just so many units to choose from. The Lehman Russ has freaking whatever many variants, especially if you're messing around with all sorts of stuff. But what is the core of the list that is doing well at the moment?
Yeah, so I'd say that. So this actually harkens back to 2 online team events, because there's a bit of a narrative context here. So I played Guard at LGT in September. Yep. And then before that, I'd played about 10 or 20 games with it, just trying it out. Because in Team Ignite, I was like, come on, because everyone knows I love Guard, right? I played it 9th edition, I won best overall Guard ITC or whatever, won Super Majors with it. And it's really my faction I love the most. So despite me believing it was quite bad in the Eldari CSM meta, I was always trying to play it. So what happens is through that course of probably about 30 games, I eventually came to the iteration of the build that had 30 Kasrkin in it. 30 Kasrkin, 3 Basilisk, and 2 Manticores. And I submitted that for 2 online team events with Ignite, which we won. That was the Vibe Check and the Try Hard online team event. From then, because those are public games, we had quite a few people watching the games, and my first couple of rounds went really well, and I 20-0'd Alexandra Seiko playing Eldari, 10 Wraith Guard. He was the winner of LGT, and after those couple of games, and I was beating I think it was like Team Sweden's CSM player and stuff like that, like 20-0. People were like, what the fuck is going on here? And even myself, I was kind of like, I think I've cracked the build. And it was really, the whole innovation was playing 30 Kasrkin, being able to pop rhinos and that rhino meta that was in. So that's where the whole kind of thing has come from, really. And the Kasrkin was like the main kind of namesake which I kind of brought to it, and that's really what's helped bring the list into like something that's competitive. So the list is the list, but I guess let's just go over the list I played at the South Coast Super Major. It's basically Leontis, Ursula Creed. I'm just trying to do this off the top of my head. Leontis, Ursula Creed, 30 Kasrkin. It's got 10 Catachan Jungle Fighters. It's got 1 Chimera, 2 Scout Sentinels, 2 Manticores, 2 Basilisks, 6 Bulgrin, and I think that's basically 2 tank commanders in that variant.
2 tank commanders, yeah. And you had, and I even remember this because I thought it was poignant. I might ask a question about this later. You had 1 with plasmas, 1 with multi-melters.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that just because the model you had, or?
No,
definitely
100% intentional. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's the core of the list, and it's a lot of people would look at that or look at Guard and they say, oh, it's just indirect, but the reality is it's actually a pretty well-rounded list. I think you've got a lot of it is a significant part of mechanized infantry, and a lot of making like 1.5 average charges per turn or something like that, right? So you're getting stuck into combat, you're playing all around the board, but it is quite oppressive in the sense that it forces your opponent to be aggressive into you. And as a good player, when you can force your opponent to be aggressive into you, you've always got the upper hand. It's like the high ground, so to speak.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. So what is Guard doing that makes them unique or powerful at the moment? When you talk about they're good into the meta, they're good into the things that are good. What are these things that are good?
Yeah, so what I would say is their one not great matchup is the Canoptic Court 18 Wraith build. And
it's just stat check.
You can't be good into everything. It's just unfortunately, that build is extremely stat checky, and that's the one complaint I would have about the meta is that at some point you roll dice into your opponent, and they roll dice back at you, and whoever rolls better kind of comes out on top, because there's going to be a few massive pivotal turns that are basically always going to happen, kind of irrespective of your player's skills, so to speak, which is a bit unfortunate. But so that's the one bad matchup. But Hypercrypt, all that stuff is all good as well. So.
Yeah.
I completely blanked out. And what was the original question?
What are the tools that Guard have available to them, and your list in particular, that is so powerful at the moment? Yeah.
So there's 2 big components, I would say. The first is obviously the indirect. So you've got 2 Manticores and 2 Basilisks. Now that allows you to open up parts of the board where you can get your infantry into to flip objectives, flip primary. It allows you to hit backfield objectives that then allow you to respawn your infantry into their deployment zone, which is a huge part of your game plan. And then obviously it just gives a level of attrition against armies that would typically be quite hard to interact with. It provides the ability just to catch them out and bring them into you, which is really critical. So you're thinking about the Eldari MSU builds, for example. That's really good at doing them. So that's the indirect piece. So that just provides you with damage throughout the game. The next critical piece is the 30 Kasrkin and probably 1 Chimera if that's what you're going to play. This is your tool, basically. It's like your Swiss Army knife, so to speak.
Correct.
They are absolutely incredible. They disembark. They're just regular human beings. They move 6, disembark 3 out of the Chimera, so they move 9 from the Chimera. But they've got 2 plasmas and 2 melter rifles. And in fact, in a variant that I'm playing in a team event against Germany, I'm running 2 volleys and 2 plasmas in one of the third variants. Yeah. Just for their extra bonus rapid fire potentially.
Correct.
So they've got a couple of things going on. 2 melters, 2 plasmas, but then they've got the melter mine, and the melter mine is like legitimately a very, very good ability to have.
It is a one-of-a-kind ability in the game at the moment, as in it's on a unit you want to take. There are other versions that are similar. I think in Curses have something similar, and there's probably some others smattered around, but they're not on units that you're particularly excited about. Whereas Kasrkin, you're like, sweet Jesus, let me have some more of that, please.
Oh, it's the funnest thing to use as well. So the melter mine goes.
Oh, it's so janky.
At the start of any phase,
you
on a 2+, if that model is within 3 inches of an enemy unit, you can roll the 2+. Against vehicles, it does 2d3, which is obviously really good. And against infantry units, non-vehicles, it does d3, which is still really good. So the melter mine is really good because it dies, and then you respawn it with reinforcements, your key stratagem, and then you get your melter mine back as well. So really, really good. The Kasrkin can order themselves. So if you respawn them, you're going to be off the board, and then you're in reserve. They can order themselves from reserve because in 10th edition you can do that now. And then they'll come in with an order, which makes them kind of independent as well, which is
correct.
Really what you need for Guard, because Guard stuff in and of itself is actually quite bad. Like a Basilisk is not great, but you need to sync multiple synergies into your pieces to get them to be a point where they're actually good compared to the rest of the armies.
I mean, credit to GW. That's exactly the Guards' flavor. That's exactly how they're supposed to feel. So kudos there to them. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's kind of cool when you synergize like the command structure through your supporting pieces, just like it would on a battlefield. So Kasrkin are going to be your primary way of flipping your opponent's objectives, slowing your opponent down, bogging them down, tagging squads, and dealing a little bit of chip damage. I mean, primarily I'd play them in that way as well. Then you've got 6 Bulgrin. 6 Bulgrin are, for me, they're kind of like the classic slow roll piece. So mine just moves 6 because I can't order them outside of 6 inches usually. So I just, use them to gum up the board, contest the middle objective, slow down key pieces of like hard-hitting melee combat that my opponent would try and sink into me. They're really good.
And you're saying that... Sorry, you're saying that because, forgive me if I'm wrong, they can only be in your list. They can only be ordered by Lord Solar. Is that correct?
Yes. I think I said on our podcast as well. I think I'm the only player in the world that doesn't play the command squad.
Yes. Because you're exactly right. So they usually chain to him, and he's usually changed the artillery pieces, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So in my deployment zone, typically I'd have Leontis with 3 indirect pieces at my backfield, and then I have a 4th indirect piece on an opposite side of my deployment zone with my tank commander that would be in that space within 12 of that piece as well. So I'd order 1, 2, 3 from Leontis plus 1 from the tank commander.
Correct.
There.
Yeah.
And that's just because I absolutely hate playing with pieces that I would otherwise be able to do if I just played well. So that's just my philosophy on things. But I've just stuck with it. It seemed to work out fine for me. So then you've got 10 Catachan Jungle Fighters and the Ursula Creed and the indirect squad to use Fields of Fire for free as well, and a couple of Scout Sentinels as well in there.
All right, so when we say any phase, give me an example or two of the absolute nonsense jank you can execute with the Kasrkin Melter Mine. Because people just... I'm telling people this not because I want more people to do this. I want people to be aware of what can be done to them. Go on, mate.
Oh, the best one is this one, right? So this happened in the team event, actually, the online team event with a couple of people watching. So I'm playing against CSM, right? Okay, CSM, 2 units of 5 chosen, and there's Rhino, okay, right? So I disembark my Kasrkin, and then I shoot the Melter into it, and then shoot the Plasma as well. The Rhino goes down to 4 wounds, right? Okay.
Perfect.
Now, what you would normally think is,
right.
What you'd normally think is, you just Melter mine them in the charge phase, right? No. You charge the Rhino, and then tag another Rhino with it. And then in their movement phase, you Melter mine the Rhino.
So now they've disembarked.
And then they can't charge, right? So that's the absolute creme de la creme of Melter mines.
Well, in addition, they're battle shocked when they get out, so aren't eligible to have strats used upon them either. So if you wanted to checkmate someone who could turn on a lone op, or someone who has a reactive move, or all sorts of other things that you could just jank around by just this simple, this one simple trick.
Yeah, and then tons of time you're just gonna charge your Kasrkin squad, string them out. The really good part about the Kasrkin squad, Adam, is that they have 4 special weapons. The sniper is never wounds for me, so I just ignore that for the time being. It's got basically 4 special weapons. It's got 2 melters and 2 plasmas. And then what you can do is when you disembark from your Chimera, you can string them out in a really large line because you've only got 4 relevant guns most of the time.
That matter.
So you string them out for their 4 relevant guns to hit one thing, and then you string the other guys out to set up your charge on a completely different side of the board. And which is really good because then you're going to charge with that side, which is going to be your Melter Mine side. Charge into combat, you maybe would have shelled their unit you're going to charge with the indirect already to whittle it down. Then you Melter Mine them, and then you ask them how many attacks they have. And then if it's less than 7, then you go, okay, charge you, Melter Mine you. Maybe you kill a guy, so they've got 5 attacks. And then you lose 5 Kasrkin, you tag them in combat, then you flip their objective as well, which is really good. You can also
that's beautiful.
Fall back from stuff and then give yourself bonus OC, so you can fall back and then flip objectives and stuff like that as well. So yeah, they're super good. And just against Eldari, if you can get 10 Kasrkin to just charge any MSU thing, Melter Mine it, and then you've got 20 attacks, so you're probably going to kill the squad basically.
It's totally fine. All right. Last question before we move on to some patron stuff. Do you have some kind of ritual of manifestation that allows you the power to say whatever you like and then, do well with
it? Basically, no, because the reality is, so a lot of this kind of spurs from Vic and I saying that Astra Militarum was one of the best armies in the game, and the reality is, it's just it's just true. It's really strong, but that's obviously amplified in the fact that I could probably do reasonably well with a bunch of factions, but what I would say on that as well is that to win any big tournament, you've got to have a bit of luck by your side. You've got to have a bit of a good run. Obviously at the South Coast Major, I had a good run, but I also played against armies that were, I was going to be good into. I didn't hit the Canoptic Wraith build, but there weren't actually any in that tournament for the 18 Wraiths. It's good, but you put your mind to it and you practice, and you'll probably find that you can do well with any faction that people think are probably like a mid-tier faction.
Other thing I'd like to point out about Kasrkin, they have grenades, don't they? They have a grenade keyword?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Basically, everything in the army has a grenade keyword.
Exactly right. So you have a little mortal wound dump in that realm where you can just grenade and melter mine something in the same turn and actually just splack up into stuff you usually would not be able to handle with that unit.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're very flexible.
The perfect example of that, Adam, is the what's the Tau infiltrating cult the lone op
Ghost Kill.
Yeah. So that's obviously terrible to kill for guard because it blanks two things, and it's like a 2-up save -1 to do or something.
And it's a lone up, so you're very rarely getting to artillery it, if ever.
Yeah. So I played against Tau in the semi-finals, and then it was such a straightforward game plan for me. I just disembarked my Kasrkin on all the objectives. Oh, because he's trying to hold it with 2 ghost kills. Oh, grenade you, melter mine you. Don't even charge him. I'm just like, okay, just sit there, flip the objectives. Next turn, do the same thing. Eventually, his stuff just dies because I'm dealing 3 plus 2d3 is 7 mortals on average.
Yeah, it's really powerful. All right, we are going to be jumping around in our Patreon questions. First up is Sam Martin. In most competitive lists, I see people taking the same few units. Are there any units you guys think are being slept on in the guard index? Anything on the fringe of takeable for you?
Look, what I would say is that there's actually a ton of fringe stuff. And I think the thing about guard is that a lot of people get wrong is that you really need to make sure your list is tuned into the terrain format that you're playing.
100%.
For example, if you're playing, I actually think that some of the big Titanic vehicles are actually quite good. So if you've got a terrain format that allows you to play that, I think they're actually pretty good.
Don't play with me like that. I saw a lad doing really well with the Doomhammer in player placed, and I was like, I looked up the Doomhammer and I'm like, I'm ready to live this life. I'm so ready to play a Doomhammer. It's so funny.
Yeah, there's one that has firing deck 30 or something like that as well, which is good. And the thing about Guard is one of its key strengths is that it has such a deep codex that whatever the meta is, you can bring stuff to tech against the meta. And a lot of armies don't have that flexibility, right? So you think Custodes or something like that. It's kind of are you playing 35 guys or are you playing 2 tanks and 20 guys, for example, right? So being able to do that is really, really, really powerful.
So I go through a phase where probably every 2 to 3 weeks I'll write a guard list, and in every single one of those see, guard is weird for me because I write their list differently to every other list that I write. Because in guard, I just chuck in everything I want to take and then trim back. Every time I chuck in everything I want to take, there's always 1 Hellhound and there's always 1 Lehman Russ Exterminator, and then they get cut. And then they get cut every time. Every time it goes, and when it comes down to cutting points, the Exterminator's first to go, and then the Hellhound gets cut every time. But they're two that I see on the fringe.
Yeah, oh, for sure, yeah. And the Hellhound is definitely something that's viable. The Exterminator is definitely viable as well. Adam, I'm a big fan of the old Lehman Russ battle tank, actually. Believe it or not.
Regular, nice. What are you seeing there? Sell me on it.
So can I interest you something that has 4 rerolls to hit in an army that basically has no rerolls? So that's kind of the big core selling point to it is, I think. So I'm actually playing this, playing one of these in a scrim versus Team Germany. So for 20, I think it's 25 less points than the Lehman Russ, than the Tank Commander, you basically get a piece that works in and of itself, which is something you really have access to in Guard.
Yes.
So if you can just have a piece that can work just straight up, you can send it off to its own thing. Doesn't matter if it's ordered or not. It's actually quite viable. So, imagine, you could put it in outflank, rapid ingress it. It can come in, hit something on an objective with 4 rerolls to hit. It's pretty good. So you can run multi-melters with it as well. Get stuck in combat. If you're on an objective, they're on an objective. Then you have 4 rerolls to hit as well. So
exactly right.
Certainly don't hate it.
And for killing things that are usually your midfield or backfield objective holders, the battle cannon's totally fine. And to your point, the multi-melters are almost the buy in there. You want rerolls to hit on multi-melters because they will clear, damn near everything that isn't a vehicle with rerolls to hit. It's very, very, very nice. Yeah, exactly right.
And with Fields of Fire, you can get the battle cannon up to 10 -2 flat 3, which is kind of good.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. I'm just going to keep going down this list here. I don't hate a Hydra. not terrible.
Ooh,
Anti-fly
with Storm Ravens. Storm Ravens come back into the meta, or are you just seeing a little bit more there?
Oh, I mean, Katana are flying, right? So you get
Correct.
You get 4 shots that basically 4 rerolls to hit and 4 rerolls to wound. Anti-fly 2+. Maybe it doesn't 4 reroll to wound, but it's anti-fly 2+. No, it is. Yeah, it's twin link, so 4 rerolls. Yep. So and it's flat 2, flat 3 that goes down to flat 2. So I mean, 95-point chassis. Not the worst.
Dude, it's not bad at all. Tao's about to get a book. Damn near everything in that book flies of relevance. Not a bad take there either.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. Actually, the Praetor is not bad. Another indirect piece that I really don't hate. It's 270 points, but the anti-vehicle part of it's quite good. It's because it's flat 3 damage. You've got double options there. So you can be like a Basilisk variant, or you can be a anti-monster variant. Not like these are all things that I've played and tested. The Avenger Strike Fighter, the aircraft.
Yes.
It's got a pretty nice profile. So I'm always trying to make this thing into lists.
It's just too many points.
Well, 130 is not, yeah, the problem is that doesn't give you enough, you might fall back, you might fall down on the tempo in the game. And, it is Bliss Skill 4, but it has sustained its 1, so it's effectively Bliss Skill 3. But the problem is also with these aircraft is that none of them have the hover keyword, unfortunately. Like, Correct. If this thing had hover, I would snap play it for sure. Because then you could play it on the battlefield and you could order it and stuff like that. So I think they really need to fix aircraft because I think it's really annoying.
Do you know what? No. The other way. They need to stop playing with us and either let us play OP aircraft again or freaking delete them. Because right now they're just kind of tickling us with wanting to not take them.
Yeah.
I have one for you.
Okay.
Can I tell you about my heartthrob, my little baby RC car, the Cyclops demolition vehicle?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
25 points, baby. Oh, love it.
It's a good one.
Toughness 3 up, 4 wounds, 0 AC, unfortunately. But just like Nurglings, it's move 8, so it's pretty swift. And just like Nurglings, it can do all your little pushing of the buttons and investigate signals and all that other nonsense.
I actually think I need to explore this unit a bit more because I do get worried about the bring it down, because obviously it adds to bring it down. Too. And there's a threshold where your opponent's like, well, I will take bring it down. But no one has ever taken bring it down against me on my stock standard tournament list because obviously they will lose instantly because they're never going to get to my deployment zone. So they're probably never ever going to kill my indirect, which means they're going to get like 10 points on bring it down. So it's very risky to do that. So maybe you're right. There's a point where you can flex in a couple of those to maybe bring them into taking bring it down. And then you could play super defensive with them as well. Because you could deploy them and then redeploy them back into strat reserve with Leoparders and then bring them on turn 5 and they're like, oh well, bugger,
Yeah, exactly right. Or just chuck them on if you pick up, engage or behind me lines, investigate signals. One last question from Sam. Is the Guard Infantry Horde a meme or is it a real thing?
I think it's a meme personally. Yeah, I think
I think so too.
I played a list with 20 Death Corps of Krieg because I thought that's actually one of the more interesting infantry variants. And not for the reason you would think. The reason it is because it actually gets the most amount of special weapons for the number of points you get. So I think it gets something like 6 or 7 special weapons in a 130-point squad, which isn't bad. And then you get +1 to hit if you're below starting strength, which is not unfeasible. So then they would be like hitting on 3s and you could order them maybe hit on 2s. And then you can resurrect the special weapons. So I think if there's going to be one, I think that's the way to do it. And then if you reinforcements a 20-man squad back, that's obviously quite good value as well.
My favorite way to use that unit, and I've only done this once, was I slapped Caria Dractus in it and put it on a side objective. And then just like, here's 20 nonsense models that are all 2 OC with a bunch of special weapons that are loan up 18. Do you bother going to get this unit? And most of the time, people were like, it's not worth it. Unless they had like aggressors or something, they're going to one-tap them. It's just not worth their time.
And you could put +1 save on them, right? So they're just like,
correct.
4-up save.
Yep, correct. Okay, Conman 234. Hey, Devin Adam, new Astra Militarum player here. How many infantry models do you think you need in your collection to do a range of different list archetypes? I like having some infantry, but painting 100 infantry models looks daunting. Bonus hobby question, any tips on batch painting infantry?
You want to take this one, Adam, or you want me?
Yeah, more than happy to. So we don't have a codex yet, but you can almost assume, okay? You can almost absolutely freaking assume that there's going to be detachment for just the infantry swarm. I'd strongly assume there is going to be an detachment for this is just the 20-man detachment. To that end, you would want, I'd say, probably 60. 3x20 is probably where I'd want to sit or want to start, and what I'd want to have on the shelf ready to go when the codex drops. So I'd go for aim for 60, see how you're feeling after 60. If you want to go the extra 40 and go the full 100, like many of us have, I have over 200. I have a problem, I do admit it. And tips to batch paint. Me too. So get 2 rattle cans, 2 colors that you like. Yeah. Do not stick the legs on. Glue everything together on the torso, and then glue the legs to a base, and then spray one the khaki color and spray the top one the armor color, and then you just have to paint the sleeves and stick them together, wash the whole thing, and you're like 3/4 done. That's a good
strat. I like that.
That's how I got 3/4 of mine done, legitimately. Just straight up.
I will. I'll provide some advice here as well. I love the. So my guard, I actually tried to go for best painted in the last tournament. So I sunk like 60 hours painting them.
Nice.
I love Panzer Ace's light mud, and I use that as a base coat for all my cloth. So then I use that with Katie and Castellan Green for the shoulder pads and the pauldrons. And then I wash that all with Agrax Earthshade. And once you do that, you'll have a really good base coat to work with. So I think a lot of things about Guard is if you want to get them, I like paint, because I've been doing a lot of hobbying recently, my Necrons as well.
Love to hear it.
I really like
except for that last bit. That's nonsense.
Yeah, I really like to get my models to a standard where I can get the base coat really, really good. And then if I want to revisit them, I can just do all the detailing parts after that. So yeah, I'd really recommend Light Mud, and then Castellan Green with the Agrax Earthshade. And if you really want to batch paint, you can obviously spray them with Light Mud. Or you can use Xandri Dust, Desert Sand by Colorforge, which is a rattle can spray, and then Agrax Earthshade. And you can even put your wash in a airbrush if you use that as well. I'd recommend that as well.
And just that's literally what I was doing, or dipping them. Just put them on a blue tack them all to a ruler, and then just dip all the way down. You can get 10 in a row, dip them all.
Disgusting. What I would say is also black contrast Black Legion for the for the metal parts with just a dry brush, a bit of silver will give you that'll get you 80% of the way. Then you can put a few red dots and green dots on stuff, and it'll really pop as well.
Look at this. This is what the patrons bring, guys, because usually this will just be a bunch of crunchy Dave and Adam talking about, what about this matchup? What if they do this? What about this mission? And instead we're here talking about hobby tips. All right.
You want to know Daniel, really cool? If I can keep hobbying one more. If you really want to work, so all my guard are painted, my Lehman Russ battle tanks. I like to do the military World War II camouflage on them. So I like to do base coat Castellan, Caden Castellan for the green, or use a paint from AKG Interactive, I think it's called Olive Green, which is like the original World War II stuff. And then you do a light, a brown black as one of the camouflage dots, and then you do like a burgundy kind of brown as a secondary camouflage, and you do that as like the squidgy kind of patterns over the tank, and then you wash that completely with Agrax Earthshade, and then you'll have a really cool like old school kind of thing, and then you could just dry brush or edge highlight over the whole thing, and it'll come out really nice. So
fantastic.
Love it.
All right, Daniel Ford has asked Adam two questions for you and David. Do you think tank commanders shoot on death ability should have the term and condition of a 2+ removed? 3 games in a row, I've rolled a 1. Look, that's the only ability you're really paying the points for over a regular Lehman Russ, aren't you? That's the only ability that they have apart from issuing an order. And what's the points difference between, like, let's just say the demo and the non-demo tank commander?
All the tank commanders are the same. They're all 205, and you basically get the variant of whatever gun you want to have in it. But if you're talking about like a demo cannon, Lehman Russ, and a tank commander, it's basically 200. 5-point difference. Yeah. And the demo cannon, I think, can shoot into combat or something. I mean,
correct. So you're giving up. So just in the comparison, because the demo tank commander is the most taken one. So that comparison, you're paying 5 points for a 2+ to shoot on death over shooting in combat, which is, only comes up should the thing get charged or you charge people with it. So 100% it's worth it.
Yeah.
Is the fight?
Sorry, I was just going to say, if you're playing 4 indirect pieces, then you can order 1 with your tank commander and 3 with Leon to switch. Just kind of works out neatly as well. There.
Oh yeah, it's the 5 points absolutely well spent. I don't think it should have that TNC removed. Shooting on death is such a premium ability in 40k that I think it needs to have a failure condition in there. Otherwise, I would be very happy to just take 3 in some lists and just yeet them at people.
I mean, if you're playing on more like sparse open boards, then they're really good. One of your tough matchups can actually be the kind of Black Templars, Ironstorm, 8-hull Marine lists, and and in shootouts or knights, for example, and just straight up shootouts, the tank commander is the best thing in your whole army because you're going to come out, shoot out, then you can pop smoke. He's maybe hard to kill, and in cover he's got a 1-up, and then you can just shoot again. So it's very difficult to not shoot him twice, basically, if you do shoot him on death. So I think he's great. I mean, to be honest with you, I could see him coming down 15 points. As weird as it sounds, like they're not. And UKTC boards are quite dense, so it's actually really hard to get angles sometimes. So it's just a perfectly fair Warhammer unit. I don't think it's like OP or anything like that at all. I think it's just like this is just it's there.
All right, next question from Daniel. Should Leman Russ tanks drop in points / add back the different points for different sponsons? Feel like I get punished a lot for taking heavy bolters over melters. And 100%, the Leman Russ chassis is a perfect example of why non-granular points is an issue, because there's zero reason to take a heavy bolter on that chassis ever. It is a las cannon and your choice of multi-melters or plasma cannons, whichever. And that's pretty much, to me, denoted by the range of the top of the turret weapon. If you have a turret weapon that isn't a demolisher, you can very well, in conscience, take the plasma cannons, or you can be like David. So, David, why did you take the plasma cannons on 1, even though it's 24 inches?
So I like to play like super quite aggressive with my guards. So I have one tank that typically charges a lot. And the thing is, because they're pretty decent OC. I'm going to take off the top. It should be
3 or 4.
Yeah, 3. Okay, cool. Just making sure I didn't make a complete blunder there. So typically I like to have one. I imagine my tank commanders as like the rooks on the chessboard. They're the pieces that want to play in open files, and they can move and shoot down big open lanes. So you want to have your rooks on open files, right? So typically speaking, though, I'll always rapid ingress one tank commander. So I'll deploy it aggressively, and then I'll redeploy it back into strat reserve, and I'll have the option of coming from reserves or rapid ingress. And that's because UKTC boards are quite dense, so actually getting angles onto objectives means you'll probably have to go around a ruin. So depending on the map. So tank commanders just move 10, so they're quite difficult to activate. So I really want to have one that closes an angle, which is going to be long range. So it's going to be plasma cannons. It's not going to be in combat that often. And I want to have one that's just going to get stuck in the mud, get down and dirty, rapid ingress, potentially the move, be in melter range. And if it gets tagged in combat, I've got multi-melters to shoot in addition to that as well. So depending on your meta, depending on your board placement, you either play 2 plasma or, WTC, I'd probably play 2 multi-melter. I probably wouldn't play plasmas on WTC. And then, so just really flex about it. You want to have every single thing in your army, you want to have a very specific role for it and how it is orientated to play. And your guns will, should complement that as well.
Mate, it's one of my lines. Fit for purpose. You want your model, you want your units to be fit for purpose. Do you feel like, so back to Daniel's question, do you feel like Leman Russ should drop in points?
Yeah, I think so, because I don't actually think the archetype of spamming Leman Russes is actually any good, particularly if you're playing on a decent competitive terrain format. So I think they could definitely do dropping it. Like weirdly enough, the Vanquisher is 155. You're basically buying the chassis for that points because the Vanquisher gun is so unreliable.
So bad.
So, stuff like that. The Punisher is 160, right? So, I mean, the Punisher is not terrible in some metas, 20 shots, but you're going to miss probably with half of those. So, they're not exactly inspiring, I would say.
I think only the demo should stay the same. Just about every other chassis could go down 5-10 points, give or take, and then see what happens. 100%. I don't like that you paid the same points for heavy bolters and multi-melters and plasma cannons. I think the Leman Russ demonstrates why we need some granular points chucked back in here, because it just feels dumb. So you're telling me I could have a Leman Russ chassis that just has one heavy bolter, or for the same points, that heavy bolter is a las cannon, plus I get 2 plasma cannons or multi-melters and a pintle gun and a hunter killer missile for the same freaking points.
Makes sense.
That is dumb. That is so dumb.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
All right, jumping down here, we're just going to go to one at Random. Lady Janet 34. I want to see Guard be viable in its purest form, not just takes lots of Bulgur and is massed infantry a viable, or are we just screwed? I think we almost answered this one already. So massed infantry, as in like massed rank and file infantry, unfortunately just ain't where it's at. It just all dies. It just explodes instantly. Yeah. I do see a world where a detachment comes out, like I said, that does give that playback. But right now, is there any hope?
Yeah, it's really difficult. The problem with the meta at the moment is that it has so many durable targets as well, and your output is going to be so low that your opponent won't have to respect anything that you're doing. And then, actually we've seen the archetypes from Necrons. A lot of people thought that the drop, fire and fade, get on objectives would be really, really strong. But then, of course, as time goes by, people just learn to ring their objectives and you can't do anything about it. Yeah. So you don't actually have much output and your whole one trick is gone. So it's very similar with infantry. You're trying to play some kind of flip objective, primary pressure list because your list is has such low output. And any good player will just ring their objectives and you'll be screwed, basically. Yeah. Especially with wraiths and stuff like that. I mean, your mist is going to literally melt. Yeah.
I do really want to experiment some more with Scions again, with them being able to order off the deep strike and stuff. I don't know what that list looks like, but 30 Kasrkin and then like 4 deep striking squads of Scions, be they command squads or otherwise, does kind of get me going a little bit. And if that could possibly be an archetype for, a pseudo-massed infantry, more of an MSU, but lots of units of infantry, I think that has a little bit more legs than the big 20-mans or just mass 10-mans. Tyler D, Adam and David, what are Guard's hardest matchups, and do you prefer fixed or tactical in your list?
Yeah, so I almost always play tactical unless we're playing against Tau and, or something else, right? When you take Bring It Down Homers, of course. The list is very good at scoring tactical. In my final game, I played against Grey Knights, and my cards were awful. Like turn 1, assassinate, capture enemy outpost, bad. And then turn 2 was like behind enemy lines and stuff like that. But I was actually still able to score like behind enemy lines and whatnot, even on turn 2, because I just yeet my Kasrkin forward, double charge, get in his deployment zone, bog his army down, use them up, chuck some Melter Mines as Dread Knights, and try and get some value out of it. So, I think that's really good army to play tactical. You've got transports, you've got infantry, you've got stuff like that as well.
All right, highest marshal of Mott Irregulars. Love the freaking name. You absolute gent. Thank you. Hi to both of you. As Guard are true heroes of the Imperium, they need some PR work from, quotation marks. Sorry, italics. Not again indirect. So I'm interested. Is there play for a purely aggressive motorized infantry? So I'll just put my hands on my heart right now. Mechanized and motorized infantry is my favorite way to play Guard. I want just regular dudes in boxes doing amazing things on the table. That excites me so freaking much. Is there any hope for that in the meta at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think that's a big part of the playstyle of the meta at the moment. I was playing 1 Chimera. Previously, I was playing 2 Chimeras. And get your Kasrkin out, chuck a grenade, melt a mine, shoot some melters, shoot some plasmas, chart something up. Really good. The only problem is that Guard really lacks any melee variant that can come out of the transports, which is just the big letdown at the moment. I would love to see something viable, even if it's melee's not great. Something viable, you can put a relic on one time, good use there.
Yep. All right, next question from highest marshal of Mott Irregulars. How to use Talon Rough Riders?
Oh, yes. So actually, that was going to be one of the units I was mentioning on the edge, actually. Now, previously, this unit was completely unusable because of... Anyway,
cavalry
is the answer you're looking for.
Oh, yeah, that too. Cavalry's still pretty bad, though.
Yeah, they're not great, but you can rapid ingress this unit, and it can actually be quite good. Now, it's one of the more expensive units that you can get that also has the regimental keyword as well, right? So 140 point respawn is pretty good. So I think rapid ingressing them is quite good. I think you could actually just play these guys on the board as well. You can order them with Leontis, so they move 15. And actually, 15 inches is enough to close quite a few gaps. And it's going to be a unit that you could throw away. In my South Coast list, I wouldn't look twice if someone downgraded one of the tank commanders to something else and then swapped out a unit of Kasrkin for a unit of Rough Riders. I wouldn't hate that. Ooh. Would be fine. It would add that dynamic element to your list where you can rapid ingress a melee component onto an objective and try flip it that way. So I actually think that's low key. They're definitely one of the units that has gotten a lot better, obviously, yeah.
I think if they got a 10 to 15 point drop, I would be very excited to take 5. I did have a list that had 2x5 in it for a little bit of time, but it never saw the table. It was always just like one of those dream lists where I was like, "Oh, maybe one day if the stars align."
One by,
all right,
1x10, I reckon. That's what.
Yeah, I think 1x10 is totally acceptable as well. All right, we will go down to Alex. Any allied units such as agents or knights worth taking with guard?
Yeah, I think Kira Draxus is the only one that you'd be probably looking at here. The ability to lead a battle line unit is interesting. There's a couple more fringe ones, but I think it only just depends on the meta. If there is, a lot of heavy psychic elements to the meta, then you can take a one of the Inquisitors that can lead, like a 10-man infantry squad, for example, and then you could do something funky with it. They're all right. The Calidus Assassin's obviously the other one where it's probably your most viable one, mainly for the Vect and the ability to do tactical. But the problem is that you have lone operative. You're probably going to be holding one objective. Your home objective is never going to get taken because you have 4 tanks plus Leontis and a squad on it, right? So it just doesn't really offer much that the list requires, I think. Yeah.
I had an archetype that I coined actually only a couple of weeks ago, which was a lone op skew guard list, which was Karia with 20 death core. It was Gaunt's Ghosts, it was a Calidus, and it was Slime Arbo. So you had four. You had 4 lone op pieces, and then you just played the nonsense indirect. It was for a teams. It was a teams list. Yeah. So it's just like, oh, cool. You have to get close to remove these things, but but then I've got double or triple Bassi in here, so I'm going to slow down all the things that are actually deadly versus these things, and then I'm going to blow you up as you try and close. And I actually thought really it was kind of sick. Yeah, really frustrating.
Frustrating for some armies, yeah. Like Custodes play that a lot, right? Because they're an army that has access to no lone op, so they play Kyra Draxus quite often to get it on one of their like custodian guard squads.
100%. All right, we're going to do one more question, and then we are going to check. Oh, sorry. Canis Rex, my man.
Oh, yeah. Not bad.
He's not bad, is he? He gives you that. Hey, you have to respect me in that list. Yeah. And my issue is you are putting something you can't hide in a list where you can usually hide just about everything else or chuck things in reserve very willy-nilly, and then you're like, here's a giant thing for you to blow up.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head, Adam. So you're thinking in the right ways, is that it adds something to it takes away a strength of your list, which is that you can force your opponent into you, and suddenly if you put 400 and something points of a unit that your opponent can just go, well, if I kill this, I'm making progress on the board regardless. So even if you're showing with indirect, I'm going to kill this 400-point piece, something like that. So yeah, unfortunately, but he's quite well pointed. So yeah, it's a shame.
He is a murder ball. Like you can just bowling ball him. Yeah, exactly right. Rapid ingress him. But he's your whole. He's just about your whole reserve points. You have to earn 5 points on the table, and he's just about all of those. So it's like him and like one other squad get to be in reserve. Probably a Kasrkin maybe if you couldn't hide him otherwise. But you're not putting him and a tank command in reserve is the issue.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I don't like him.
If you redeploy into strat reserve, does it count towards the?
Lord, it'll say on that's Lord Solar's ability. Yeah, it'll say if it counts or not. I don't believe it does. Most of them don't these days. Yep. Let me just double check that while we're here, because this is the last thing we're going to do. Then we're going to check out of this episode and go over to part 2.
Some funky interaction between units that started on the battlefield don't count towards that cap. So I think if you would deploy, you could deploy him aggressively, and then your opponent would go, oh, he's potentially going to be moving this way, or going to line up to shoot him, and then you go, okay, redeploy him to strat reserve.
So you can't put him in strat reserve because it's only Astra Militarum units. But you could definitely do that. You could definitely have him starting in strat reserve and then chuck in the tank commander, because it says here, regardless of how many units are already in strategic reserve. So you could definitely start him off the table and then be like, okay, the tank commander is going off now after deployment stuff. But anyway,
being able to redeploy him is quite bad as well. I found the redeploy actually super useful, actually, even despite it being before we know who goes first, because obviously in previous editions it was always after who goes first, which is incredibly powerful. And everyone was kind of turned off that ability once 10th edition rolled around and it got nerfed a lot. But I found it to be really good, especially in an army that wants to control firing lanes as well.
Exactly right. All right, my man, that is going to check us out for part 1. Please feel free to plug your wares once again. Tell us about some Fireside goodness.
Yeah, David Gaylard, 40k Fireside Podcast. You can find us on any of your normal platforms or creating banter on Reddit. Myself and Vic VJ run that. And Team Ignite, one of, I guess, the top teams in the world. We've got a bunch of fantastic players, all friendly guys. So yeah, that's us.
Reigning defending team champs, in the ITC.
Yeah, something like that. I don't think we've ever lost a team event as well. So we're not bad.
Oof, love to hear it, mate. Hopefully it puts some targets on your back and inspires some competitive spirit. But let us check out. Thank you very much, everyone who's joined us so far. Thank you very much to the patrons who sent in the amazing questions. If you would like to be part of this Q&A, that's this super extended Q&A, because I've got just a bunch of thirsty patrons. Come over and join us on part 2 over at Patreon at Art of War Down Under. And we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you for listening to Art of War Down Under, a content review podcast for Warhammer 40k, hosted by Adam Camilleri, produced by Seamus Ronan. Enjoyed the show? Want your lists reviewed and the content you heard put into practice? Sign up to our Patreon and connect with us online or on Facebook. Just search for Art of War Down Under. Signing out from tomorrow.